Hi there, and welcome to part 2 of our discussion on Microsoft's conference at E3 2016. I'm Kevin Allen, and joining me is Christopher McDonald.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get to it. So, one of the exclusives that was shown again this year was Scalebound. What did you think of it now, seeing it again?
I've been loving this game since we first saw it. Last year, it kind of ended off with the tease that, there are going to be boss fights in the game. And they are going to be quite significant, but we didn't get any sense of what that would be like. This year, we got to see the boss fights, and I think they look amazing. I loved getting to see them. What we saw was really cool. I loved the sense of scale it had and how epic the whole thing felt. And the fact that the boss fights are going to have these multiple phases, as far as I could tell from the video. Like, it's not going to be a straightforward, this is how the boss works. There are going to be stages. You are going to have to rethink your strategy partway through and react to what the boss is doing. I love the partner system, how that seemed to play into the boss fight slightly, how there's parts of the fight that are going to force you to have to use that, and the transitions between them. I like how dynamic it was that even the setting for the fight is changing slightly. It's not just the boss is changing how it operates, but that everything is changing within this fight as the fight does. And it's really nice to see boss fights like this at a time when largely the industry has been moving away from big boss fights more and more and more and more. It's nice for this reassurance that we are going to get some from quite a big game.
Yeah, it definitely is. I'm certainly all in too, and I think with this and Nier Automata, it really seems like Platinum Games is going to be on a roll. A lot has been made at the apparent fall of Platinum Games recently. I think you have to keep it in perspective that there have been some poorer games, but those games are really just almost side projects that are to sustain Platinum Games while these better games are being made, with people like Kamiya in charge. So
yeah, and that's speaking of Kamiya as well. So speaking of Kamiya as well, that's something you have to keep in mind is that Platinum Games aren't a single entity, and a lot of these perceived lesser games are coming from the people on Platinum that we always knew to be weaker people. Like Turtles is getting a lot of hatred, and Transformers just before it did reasonably well, but not amazingly, and kind of got a decent reception, and people wondered why Turtles wasn't the same. But Transformers was a budget title being done by the same guy who did Metal Gear Rising.
Yeah.
Turtles is a budget title being done by the same guy who did Korra. It's depending on who you're getting in Platinum, it dictates what you're getting. And we definitely haven't seen things go wrong from the people that we know to be good developers at Platinum.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have problems distinguishing between teams and directors. But certainly, yeah, Scalebound looks awesome. Can't wait for it. Another game, but this one is one that we weren't aware of beforehand, was We Happy Few. Instantly, I'm all in on that game. I love the vibe. It's very ominous. Seems heavily influenced by BioShock, where one of the notable parts of the trailer is where they're gathered around seemingly to hit a piñata for a birthday party, but during watching it, you know something isn't right. There's this eeriness and almost this inevitability that something is going to go wrong, and then it does. And just that feeling of dread and this ordinary situation revealing itself to be something else entirely really was reminiscent of BioShock for me, and that's a great similarity to have. I really can't wait for that game. How did you feel about it?
Yeah, I'm largely similar. For me, even just watching, I felt very claustrophobic and trapped even early on before things were going wrong. And I love that sort of thing. It does remind me very much of the film Logan's Run, where there is this, you are in this sort of, in both, you're in this very closed off culture, and it's clearly evolved these rules that people are expected to stick to. And when people don't, things go wrong very quickly. One thing that I do wonder about, though, is how much of it will be a game and how much of it will be a walking sim. I don't necessarily need it to be a game. I would like it to be. I don't need it to be one, though, as long as it does the walking sim aspect well. But one thing I think I do need is I do at least need these moments where there's danger. I do at least need there to be something like chase sequences or something like that you can fail, because for the kind of game it is and the kind of that trapped feeling and that feeling of danger it's trying to present to me, I need there to be these moments of danger.
Yeah, definitely. I really can't wait already to see how the mystery unfolds. You know, what lies outside of these confines. You know, you touched on it, but it's very claustrophobic and it's very insular. And I can't wait to see how that develops. What kind of variety can we expect from the game and its environment? You know, you touched on the unknown of, will it be a walking sim or won't it? I think there are so many unknowns at the moment, but for now, it certainly was a promising start. So it's something that we'll definitely keep an eye on. Another game that was shown was Tekken 7, which you're a huge fan of, biggest fan. I what do you make of it being shown interestingly at Microsoft's conference of all places?
I think that's a reaction to, and it's a very strange reaction to have, because Street Fighter 5 didn't go well for Sony, but I think it's a reaction to Sony having Street Fighter 5. It's not an exclusive for Microsoft, and they've not even stressed that they're going to have exclusive content. So it's very interesting that they felt the need to show it, especially at a time when Tekken doesn't have a lot of relevance anymore to the wider world. Although I did see in some circles, I don't know how widespread this is, but I did see in some circles it being shown at one of the big two's actual conferences did give it a renewed relevance. And Akuma being in the game as part of this crossover is something we'd known for a while, but it became very clear that no one had an idea that that was happening for the game, and that being a part of the game also kind of gave it a relevance between it being shown at Microsoft and it having Akuma that really wasn't new news, but was actually new to the world, surprisingly. As far as what they've shown, it was just a teaser to sell Akuma being there, and I think it really sold it for me, it sold it for people, and I think he is the best. Thematically, he's the most fitting Street Fighter character to put into Tekken, and I do love the story implications it has as well. And Akuma's a character that it does often get forgotten about. Like, his story is really misunderstood, and people really do not understand the guy he is, and that he's not just this villain and this guy who goes out beating on people. Like, he does have this big sense. He's very much an antagonist, and he has this strict sense of honor and rules. And we got to see some of that in that trailer, that he's doing this out of a sense of owing someone. So, and most importantly, it's nice to finally have an idea of when this is coming to consoles.
Yeah, we've waited so long. It feels like forever that we've waited for news on when this would be, but it's great to finally know. And one thing that I definitely liked was the crowd's response at the show. It definitely seemed positive. People seemed like they were into it. It seemed to go down pretty well. So that can only be a great thing for that genre that really does need all the help it can get at times. So that was great. I'm glad Microsoft, you know, chose to spotlight the game in that way, even though they're not getting it as an exclusive. So I was happy with that. But now we'll move on to what was the biggest announcement at the show, and something that at the time, myself included, many people thought probably was going to win Microsoft E3 2016, was the announcement of Project Scorpio coming in late 2017. What did you make of it?
I do wonder, first of all, before my actual thoughts, I do wonder how much the decision to have it be there when that happened, because I could easily believe that when Sony turned around and said the Neo will definitely not be there, I can actually 100% believe that Microsoft last minute scrambled, went, this is the opportunity we take. They put together a showcasing to present at E3, talk about it at the same time when they had the Xbox One S to be talked about, which is interesting to talk about those together. You can argue it was to stress the idea that this isn't going to replace the Xbox One brand and is going to exist in tandem as the high-end and the low-end models. There is the argument that they were showing together to reinforce that idea, but I do suspect that actually the reason they were spoken about together wasn't planned all along and was to get that leg up on Sony.
Yeah, I definitely agree there. It seemed to me that it was just Microsoft attempting to get out in front of Sony, but for me, it appears to have backfired. Not only did it not win them E3 in the end, but Sony now has an entire year where they can improve on the Neo, because we know the specs of Scorpio now. So I expect that Sony is going to make the necessary adjustments and steal Scorpio's thunder before Scorpio ever hits the market, is what I...
And we know that's something Sony do, because what a lot of people overlooked, and a lot of people aren't aware of even now, is that the PS4 is only the stronger system of the generation due to a very last-minute change, like a change that happened within the month leading up to the E3 it was shown. And without that very last-minute change, the power gap between them would be much closer. They would actually be very close systems. And I think, I'm not 100%, it might have just been they were like 6 and a half a dozen, but I do think the Xbox One might have even had the edge if it wasn't for that really last-minute change Sony made to the system architecture. Yeah. And so it just reinforces to me that Sony are going to do the same again.
Yeah, they are. And as always, it seems to be the story of this entire generation, is that Sony just always seems to be that one step ahead. So there you have it. That was our thoughts on the entirety of Microsoft's conference at E3 2016. Let us know what you thought. Do you think Microsoft won, or do you think Sony won? As always, like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.